Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It's Wednesday, 7:30 p.m., which means, of course, it's time for yet another live stream. I'm Jason, of course, with Green Country Agroforestry right there on the shirt. And, of course, it's going to be an interesting show tonight. Hello, everybody. How y'all doing out there? Oh, yeah. Do I have everything with me? Yeah, I do. Okay. John Pumphrey's in the house saying hello, y'all. Howdy. I'm going to just sit here for a minute and get situated while we wait for scratching my ankle. I got chigger bites. I'm going to wait for a couple of people to get in here before we get started with the show proper. Tonight, we're going to do a live reading of a rewrite of an Aesop fable, which is, of course, the Townhouse and the Country Mouse. You guys don't know about Aesop. Aesop lived about 600 BC, somewhere in there, in between there. He lived to be about maybe 50 years old. He was originally from Africa. He traveled to Greece. He was a slave in Greece, but he earned his freedom because of his oratory skills and his literacy. And this is the guy that became notorious for telling fables, which are mostly morality tales intended for adults, but they're suitable for children as well, but mainly intended for adults. He was so well known for this particular talent that all of the fables up to his time have been attributed to him, and most of those that have come about after his time have also been attributed to him. Of course, the Townhouse, or the Town Mouse and the Country Mouse, is a really old one. It's out in the public domain. So I took it and tweaked it and did a little rewrite of it, and I've put a little twist on it because I want to talk about something, but I don't want to talk about it. And the reason I don't want to talk about it is, of course, censorship and guidelines and stuff like that. So by telling it in the form of a fable, perhaps I can say what I want to say and fly under the radar, so to speak. So the things that I really want to talk about are, of course, Texas and what's been going on up in Canada recently. Oh, I found a peach soda. It's not peach knee-high. We got Crush, which is not too bad for a peach soda. About the only time of year that I drink a lot of soda, summertime. And it's hot out, and I can't have the air conditioning running because it would just drown me out. So who do we have here? We've got John. Of course, we've got Vicky saying many blessings. Hi, Vicky. We got Corey Bell. Hi, Corey. And a whole bunch of other people lurking. All right, we've got enough people here to get started. Let me go ahead and let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and put this on full screen. No, I'm not. I'm going to get over here and share. Let's see. I'm going to share this window here. Here we go. And make a little minor adjustment because we don't need my ugly mug in the middle of the picture here. This is, of course, the Town Mouse and the Country Mouse. Originally by Aesop, adaptation written by yours truly, Jason Neighbors. Let's begin. The Town Mouse and the Country Mouse. Now, a long time ago, even before I was a young boy, which is a very long time indeed, there was a mouse that lived in the country. She made her home at the edge of a field in a hole beneath an old oak tree. For her meals, she ate whatever she could glean from the field. One day, her cousin came to visit from the old farmhouse on the other side of the field. The Country Mouse did her best to make her cousin welcome. Corn, beans, and fresh greens from the field were all she had to offer, but there was more than enough. But the Country Mouse's guest turned up his nose at the simple meal. I just don't understand, cousin, he said, how you can live on such poor fare as this. Back at the farmhouse, there's a whole community of mice, and we never have to work so hard for such common food as this. There's jams, bread, fresh butter, and even cheese. Oh, that sounds quite good, said the Country Mouse, especially the cheese. Come with me tomorrow, replied her cousin, and see for yourself what you've been missing. The next morning, the Country Mouse and her cousin made the long journey across the field to the farmhouse. Be very quiet, said the Country Mouse's cousin as they crept through the back door and into the kitchen. The farmer's wife doesn't like mice, so she keeps a cat inside the house. It will catch us and kill us if it can. A cat? Exclaimed the country mouse. Are you trying to get us all killed? Don't worry. The cat can't reach us while we are in our hole. Once the cat falls asleep, we can come out and eat our fill right off the table. And what, pray tell, is to stop the cat from waking up while we're at feast and catching us on the table? Asked the country mouse. You really do worry too much, her cousin replied. The farmer's wife is very strict and does not permit the cat upon the table. So you see, it's quite safe. Well, that seems strange to me. Pardon me. Well, that seems strange to me, mused the country mouse. I've never known a cat to do as it's been told. But I am only a country mouse after all. Perhaps it is different here. Soon enough, the cat went to sleep, and the mice crept out of their holes and made their way to the table. Oh my, the country mouse exclaimed. Everything is just as you said, even better, especially the cheese. I knew you'd see it my way, her cousin said. Wait, what was that noise? It's the cat! Run for your lives! Wait. This lifestyle of yours isn't safe at all, cousin, said the country mouse. It's just as I thought before. There is no security to be found in expecting your enemies to obey the rules. And so the country mouse returned to her home in the hole at the base of the old oak tree, all the way across the field from the farmhouse. As she watched the sun set over the farmhouse, the country mouse said to herself, There's another lesson that I've learned today. 'Tis better to eat from one's own hard work than to steal bread from another's table. And that, of course, is the end. And we'll stop share right there. So hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed my retelling of a classic Aesop fable. Of course, it's the town mouse and the country mouse. A little bit different wording, a little bit different trajectory, but yeah, mostly the story is there as originally presented, with some little bit different graphics and illustrations. So how is everybody doing tonight? Let's see. We've got Joe managed to make it. Hi, Joe. And Brian's here. Brian says, hey, country mice are smart. You can't trap them with peanut butter. I'll bet you probably could. I don't know. I've caught a lot of mice with peanut butter. Vicky says, I heard that once Aesop was one of the bearers when his master was traveling to another city. In the mad scramble for the burdens, he chose the largest, and he could hardly be seen. Aesop was an interesting character. He was trusted by King Croesus to deliver payments to the citizens of the town of Delphi. He went to Delphi and was trying to distribute the money, the gold, as he had promised to do. But the people of Delphi didn't like the amount that they were being given. And so since he couldn't distribute it the way it was intended, he decided, okay, I'm just going to return back to the king and bring his gold back to him and explain the situation to him rather than upset everyone. But some of the people in Delphi got a little bit upset about that, and they decided to pull a fast one on him. They took a bull from the temple of Apollo and snuck it into his pack. So while he was on his way out of town, somebody said, hey, he stole from the temple. And they searched his pack, found the bull, and then they drug him back, had a quick trial, and threw him off of a cliff. And that's how Aesop died in the city of Delphi. Yeah, sometimes, it doesn't pay to be principled. But what would we do without principled people? John says, evil does not follow the rules. That's right. So, yeah, the farmer's wife being strict and not letting the cat onto the table, it was not mean that the mice are safe to be on the table, because the cat's going to do what the cat wants to do anyway. Country mouse will take up residence in your truck, all kinds of places if you leave it set. I have a hat that I used to wear for Halloween. Not every Halloween, because you don't always wear the same costume every year, but it was a wizard's hat, the pointy thing. And I'd had it sitting on a shelf for a few years, and one year I pulled it out and said, okay, I'm going to put this on, I'm going to wear it. And when I pulled it out and put it on my head, all of a sudden a whole bunch of stuff fell out of it. And of course it was chewed up newspaper and everything else. I was like, oh no, there's mouse droppings, and there was a live mouse in there as well. So I had my own personal little Radagast moment with my wizard's hat, and there was a mouse in there. And of course, yes, that's what we've got. That's what we've got this little girl for. Say hi to the people. Hi. Hello. Now, I wanted to add a little bit extra to the story, but it didn't really fit with the overall original theme. And of course, what I wanted to add was an additional segment of the story where the mice there at the farmhouse, since there's a whole community of them, said, hey, we're the majority here, so we get to make some rules for ourselves. Let's make a law that states that nobody's allowed to have claws, because, the cat, if it didn't have those claws, it wouldn't be able to kill us mice. So we'll pass a law that prohibits people from having claws, and we'll see if that works. Of course, the obvious outcome to that is you're not going to remove the claws from the cat. It's going to go ahead and attack mice anyway. Hello, how to garden. Corey says, I'm sure you heard about what happened at Warren Clinic earlier. No, I didn't. Just go ahead and type it down there in the comments, because I haven't heard about it yet. Mary says, every spring semi-truck. Yeah. Hello, kitty. I know, right? Wasn't that something? We spent a whole 12 minutes. That's the show. That's it. The rest is all discussion. And Kitty, who apparently, why don't you go eat your food that I put out for you? Huh? Why don't you go eat the food I put out for you? You don't want the food I put out for you? See, cats, they just don't do what they're told. So when was this, Corey? So that's another one, huh? Oh my goodness. What's the world coming to, huh? Now, when I was a kid, we had Aesop's Fables. We had the Grimm's fairy tales. We had Aesop's Fables. We had all of this stuff available, and it wasn't being practiced or taught in schools so much. You might occasionally see an Aesop's Fable as a story time, excerpt, part of English Lit. You might get an Aesop's Fable in there. Once upon a time, things like Aesop's Fables and other wisdom type writings were included in the school curriculum. Whenever you were sitting there and learning to read, you would have your small slate, your horn book, and you would copy these lines from, say, Poor Richard's Almanac or Aesop's Fables, or in some cases it was the Bible in the United States at once upon a time. This was back in the days whenever the parents would hire a teacher to come and teach their children. Now, instead of the parents hiring teachers to teach their children, it's the government that hires the teachers to come and teach the children, and so the teachers are a bit more limited in the curriculum that they can use. John's saying, media needs to stop glamorizing mass murder events. I'm not even going to call them that particular word. I'm going to call them mass murder events. The fact that they choose to use a particular implement or another to commit mass murder doesn't really matter so much. What matters is things take place in positions where people are prevented from adequately defending themselves against the potential threat. Minnesota had a tornado warning. That's fun. Actual tornado or just the warning? I wonder about the National Weather Service sometimes. We get these alerts all the time now. When I was a kid, it was okay. Yeah, it's a thunderstorm. It's coming through the area. Woohoo! You might you might, if you were lucky, see a wall cloud or possibly occasionally even a funnel cloud. I remember one year there was 3 that were visible from our front porch all at the same time. We could look out and we could see all 3. They were a good ways away, but we could see all 3. Now, every single thunderstorm that rolls through, the National Weather Service acts like it's the end of the world. It's a deadly storm, and you're all going to die if you don't seek shelter immediately. And it worries me a bit because the warning is excessive. It's excessive to the point where people are going to stop paying attention to the warning, which is kind of another Aesop's fairy tale or fable. Sorry, it's another Aesop's fable. Of course, is the boy who cried wolf, which I might do some other day and talk about the boy who cried wolf. Of course, you're all familiar with this story, right? So there was a boy who tended the sheep in the town, and he was out there watching the sheep. And this is very, very boring work. He's sitting there in the field, and there's not a whole lot to do. The sheep are just wandering around and grazing. And unless one of them wanders too far and he needs to go bring it back to the flock, that's about all he needs to do. And because he's bored, he decides he's going to have a little bit of fun. And I don't know what got into his head, but he thought that a good idea to have a little bit of fun was to run into town and cry out that there's a wolf attacking the sheep. And of course, all the villagers got riled up because he isn't watching just his sheep. He's watching everyone's sheep. This is, his job is tending the sheep for the village. So the village gets riled up and they go out there to deal with the wolf. They get out there and find the sheep just munching away in the field. Everything's fine. And the boy goes, well, that was fun. I got everybody wound up, twisted them up really good. And at least he had a little bit of amusement. But eventually he gets bored again. So a few days go by and he decides, I'm going to do that again. So he runs into town. There's a wolf attacking the sheep. All the villagers jump up. They run out to the pasture where the sheep are being grazed. And of course, once again, there's no wolf. Now, by this time, the villagers are getting upset because they have things to do. They hire the boy to watch the sheep so that they don't have to be out there watching the sheep. Somebody has to watch the sheep, but they've got roofs to mend. They've got cheese to make. They've got butter to churn. They've got bread to bake. They've got grain to grind up to make flour. They've got fences to build. They've got houses to build. They have horseshoes to make. They have all the other things that you need to do to have a functioning village that needs doing. And his job, the boy's job, is, of course, to watch the sheep. So they're being distracted from their jobs, the things that they need to be doing to go deal with the wolf threat when there is no wolf threat. So they're upset. Third time comes around. It's been a few days. The boy decides, yeah, I'm bored. I'm going to try that same trick again. Runs into the village and goes, no, I'm telling this story incorrectly, aren't I? Ah. So a few days go by and a wolf actually does attack the sheep. That's how it goes. So a wolf is actually attacking the sheep. The boy goes running into town and goes, there's a wolf attacking the sheep. There's a wolf attacking the sheep. But of course, nobody believes the boy. And the flock gets decimated by the wolves. Some versions of the story, the boy gets eaten by the wolf. It all depends. Of course, the moral of the story is still the same. But it seems sometimes that the alerts and the notifications and the fear porn that we get exposed to is excessive to the point where if there's a really serious threat and people need to be advised and need to be aware that there's something that requires their attention, they just dismiss it because they've heard it before. We've heard the warnings before. Yeah, whatever. It's Tuesday. It's the end of the world again, right? Wink Tartanbell says, I miss the old Brer Rabbit tales. Oh, please don't throw me in that there briar patch. Oh, right. Yeah. Those were good. And those got removed from the school curriculum because of because of a phrase that was used in the story that was also used as a derogatory term, but it was not used in the story as a derogatory term, if you know what I mean. Because that word was there, they removed it from the curriculum. Kind of like Life on the Mississippi, the Mark Twain stories, Huckleberry Finn. That used to be regular school curriculum. It's not anymore. Had a garden saying everything's hyped up, keeps everybody stressed out. Oh yeah, yeah. And there are things that we do need to be concerned with to a certain extent, but also you need to keep in mind there are things out there that are concerning that we can do absolutely nothing about, and getting stressed out about them does us no good, none whatsoever. But to the extent that we can take action and do things for ourselves, we should take action and do for ourselves. This is, of course, why we garden and prepare in a general way, and also in the specific way of making sure that we're able to feed ourselves and our families, and hopefully our neighbors too, to a certain extent. Hopefully we're talking to our neighbors and saying, hey, guys, you need to be taking some precautions because things are getting a little bit dicey out there. But it's hard to get that message across whenever so much overhyping of crises that aren't crises has been done. The part is the Weather Service doesn't know exactly how. Oh, shoosh. Here in Oklahoma, I can look at the 10-day forecast tonight. I'll look at it. It's going to tell me the next 10 days. Tomorrow, it's all changed. It'll be like that every day. We should be having rain right now, but it's just humid and hot. Corey also saying Rare Rabbit was one of my favorite as a kid. Did anybody ever go see? I think it was Disney that did it originally. This was back whenever Disney was Disney. Remember, Song of the South. There was an animated series called Song of the South, and I saw that when I was a small boy. This was shortly after I saw Pete's Dragon, I think it was, or right about the same time that movie was coming out in the theaters. And they'd never show that today. Now, once again, if you have things that you need to say or want to say, try to avoid the naughty words because they're going to get automatically censored anyway. But also, I can't read them out loud. You can always find ways to curse. Just do it inventively. Johnson, they can only predict 3 days in advance. They can kind of take a guess 3 days in advance. Prediction is kind of hard out on the prairie. Things change too rapidly. Oh, with that tornado warning, saw the trees bending bad. Only 3 minutes. Tell you what, a lot can happen in 3 minutes. A whole lot can happen in 3 minutes, especially if you're locked in a classroom with somebody that wants to hurt you, and the people that you assume are being paid to protect you are more interested in standing outside in the hallway and stopping your parents from helping you. Anyway. Corey saying, I'm mainly concerned if the lasagna bed method is going to produce well with my Bush hybrid cukes. Probably. Lasagna beds are good. Of course, more organic matter and the more feed that you can get down to those roots, the better. But just in general, stacking a whole lot of those layers on top of each other allows you to absorb and hold a lot of moisture. And keeping moisture close to the roots of your plants is going to be immensely helpful. I mean, even in the usual year, whenever you get normal rainfall. Mark C. DeYoung, yep, that was in the soundtrack to that film. Yep. Oh, I like this one. He says you can be political or you can be correct, but you can't be both. Yep. Well, that's the thing about politics, right? You can't please everybody all the time. That's why occasionally you have people that come out and they say what they mean what they say, and there's going to be a portion of the population that just hates them. And for my part, even if I don't agree with them, if that's the kind of person I'm dealing with, I kind of appreciate that quality. At least I know who I'm dealing with. I haven't decided if this is better or worse than peach knee high. I wish I had peach knee high to compare it with. All right. So I'm glad I managed to get that off my chest. I wanted to say that little bit. If you guys want me to, I can run through that entire bit there again. If you want, I don't mind. For the people that came in late, I'll run through the story one more time. Just want to say some thanks to all of you guys out there that have been watching videos lately. We've got a lot more views this past May, and picked up a few new subscribers. We're up at over 7,500 now. And for the month of May, we actually managed to make enough money from YouTube that I can start doing some investment on projects that I've been wanting to do for the past 2 years. Of course, you guys know I wanted to get started on this thermoelectric generator project, and I think whenever we get the YouTube paycheck, I'll be able to buy some of that stuff to put it together. And the little generator circuitry is part of it, but there are a whole bunch of different components that need to go together to make this thing. I need to build a rocket mass heater, a rocket stove. I need to build a solar water heater. I need to build a reservoir to hold the hot water in. I need pumps to pump the water up to the roof or wherever I'm putting the solar water heater, or pump it through the water heater in the rocket stove. Of course, the TEG modules, voltage regulators, battery banks, stuff like that. Whenever it's all said and done, what we're hoping to pull out of here is a system that will allow you to get electrical power from either solar or from heating water using a rocket mass heater. So basically anything that burns, we can use to heat water, or we can use the power of the sun. Whenever the sun's shining, to heat water, we can store that in an insulated tank, and it's that hot water on the one side of the thermoelectric generator and cold water coming on the other side from a pond. Yes, we're going to need to build a pond. We're getting pretty close to the point where we can start putting all those parts together and produce that sort of a system. If it works the way I expect it to, I'll be able to show you something that's going to be pretty exciting. A way that you can actually get off grid, electrically speaking, at a fraction of the cost of buying a regular household solar power system. And of course, it doesn't just rely upon sunlight. You can burn fuel also to heat your water to generate the electricity. Well, thank you, Corey. Fellow Green Country folks, yay! I've seen some Mr. Tessalonian stuff, yeah. He's got a rocket hat. What? Yeah. I think it may be too late to get in on the Kickstarter campaign, but I was one of the people that contributed over $100 to the Paul Wheaton Kickstarter project for his latest movie on free heat for the masses, the rocket mass heater workshop, all that good stuff. So I'm expecting to receive some of the goodies from that. And mainly the goodies I'm looking for are pretty much standardized plans for a Wheaton style mass heater. That way I can use that as the core for the water heater, which will be the one of the legs of the entire system. once it's designed, since that's the core of it, anybody else that's using a similar mass heater can just plug their existing system into this setup, and they're off to the races. Got a dozen projects half done. I know exactly how that is. I like Mary gets on to me about this, right? Because I'll start a project and get a certain distance down the road with it and go, okay, I can't finish it now, but I'm just going to put it here and I'll get around to it later. And I'm always getting to and finishing a project. I'm also starting about a half dozen more. So I always have tons of projects in the works. Yes, he does. David the Good has a lot of good content. Brian said, I can never figure out the solar water heater for heat sink, cold Minnesota overnight temps in a greenhouse. I tried. Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Whenever you have a good amount of sun power, you can heat water with a solar water heater. But if you don't have enough sun, like your zone 4, zone 3 even, in certain parts of the year, you're just not going to get enough sun to get enough heat that way to heat your water. So you're going to have another means of heating water. And of course, that's where a rocket mass heater comes into play, and you work the coils, your water coils, that would also go up to your rooftop or wherever you have your access to sunlight for your solar water heater. The same lines would go and go to your stove. So either way, you can heat water. You can either heat it from the sun, or you can heat it with fuel. In theory, you could heat it with the cooling ponds outside of a nuclear reactor where they keep the spent fuel rods. In any case, any way that you can, you heat the water. That accomplishes half the task of generating your electrical power for it. You don't have to get it all the way up to boiling, which is kind of the cool part. Up to, say, about 140, 150 degrees is sufficient. And John's saying, solar is really only effective in the Sun Belt. In Southeast Ohio, they're building more solar, but there's only a lot of sun during the summer. Yeah. Further north, or if you're on the southern hemisphere, further south, about the best way you can get solar power effectively is to use solar thermal, where you are reflecting off of mirrors to a central location. This would be a fairly large plant, and then boiling the water, using that to turn the turbine and generate electricity. Not incredibly efficient, considering that you can do it with thermoelectric generators now. Had a garden say, it's too hot down here for you to play with one of those mass heaters. So the thing is, I don't think I want to have the mass heater inside the house. I think I want it outside the house. Now, if you're living up in the frozen north, like Brian is, you're already familiar with this concept. The furnace is not in the house. Here around Zone 7, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, northern Texas, places where we might have a wood stove or a fireplace, that's inside the house, and people are accustomed to bringing the wood and bringing the fuel inside the house, and they might stack it up next to the stove and they burn it in the stove, and that heats your house. But if you're further north, your furnace is actually not inside the house at all. It's outside. So of course you don't track in all the dust and the debris and the other stuff that comes along with a wood heat. For people that have used a wood stove extensively, and I have when I was a kid, of course we do now also, it generates a lot of dust. And there's the bugs that come into the house along with it too. You bring in the wood, you bring in the crickets, you bring in the centipedes, you bring in everything. Lizards, salamanders, who knows? Snakes even. So you have the furnace part outside. And then you can run ducts from the furnace, the air circulation around the furnace, or use hot water and bring the hot water in and circulate it through a radiator inside the house, which is typically the way it's done in the north. So if you're already circulating hot water through a radiator, you've got water in the system circulating. You're halfway there already. Vicky's saying, I've seen hot water systems based on a wood stove water heater. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about there. Yeah. There's some camping outfits that sell camp stoves that have the hot water heater built into them as well. Let's see. What is this? Lens from an old projection TV. Hardest part is keeping it from getting so hot it melts metal. Yikes. Well, the thing I'm thinking about for ours, I'm going to do this in 2 stages. The first stage is I'm just going to do a test of concept, 4 TEG units and a reflector. And I might put a 12-volt fan on the back side of it to draw cool air across the backside. And we're just going to try on sunny days to get enough heat generated from the reflector, like you'd use a solar oven on the thermoelectric generators, to get over 140, 150 degrees. Shouldn't be too difficult to get there. And that should be enough to generate at least 12, 13 volts during the warm part of the day. The second stage of this is going to move from using from making that just a static system with just a reflector going to having pipes running across either side. So we'll have a hot side and a cold side with water going on either side. The cold side has to circulate through a pump, the cold side has to circulate through a pond where it will keep it chilled, and then the hot side will either go to the solar water heater or the rocket stove, and in the intermediary we'll have an insulated tank that we store the hot water in. If we can insulate the tank well enough, and I'm thinking, aerogel would be ideal for this, but probably not practical as far as expenses are concerned, at least not right now. Aerosolized concrete, perhaps. Foamcrete, that sort of thing. That should be sufficient to keep that water hot and hold it hot for an extended period of time. If I can have water 155 degrees plus and hold it in a tank overnight without it cooling beyond 150 degrees, then we've got it made. All we have to do is just build it up, make it to scale, and you can power up your house indefinitely. Heterodox is saying, passive solar mass heater outside you can cook on or in. Yeah. Possibly this year. I don't know. I need to do it soon, but possibly this year we may be working on a solar powered food dehydrator, which is pretty simple. You use a couple of sheets of OSB to build the box with the trays on the inside on the one side. On the opposite side, so you have a box like this. On the opposite side, you've got a tray tilting in that has your hot box on it. So it's 2x4 on either side, OSB at the bottom, and plexiglass or Lexan on the surface, or glass. You could use glass as well, but that's insulated and painted black on the inside. The cool air comes in through the low end, and at the top end is where your hot air comes out. This goes into your big box, and there's a wall on the inside, so the hot air comes up and then it has to go down the wall to the bottom of the chamber. Now your food is all inside this chamber, so your hot air has hit the bottom, and now it has to go up and out of it at the top in order for it to pass through. And just drawing that hot air through like that is sufficient to dehydrate your food. Pretty cool. It's a little bit space consuming, so I don't know exactly where I'll put it. Mary says, unless your water systems are freezing proof, it's no good. Well, yeah, if you're maintaining a temperature in your lines of 55 degrees or so on the cold side and 140 or 150 degrees on the hot side, they're not going to freeze. But you might just be generating electricity just for the purposes of generating electricity at some point. Brian says, I put a transmission cooler in a Carpenter box with plexiglass solar with 2 tubes, hot and cold return, into a black lawn roller. I messed on the thermodynamics. It didn't work. Well, some places, especially zone 4 and further north, it's kind of hard to get enough enough intensity from the sun to heat much. Interesting says you could always store the water below ground. That's exactly what I have in mind if I was going to be building the site from scratch from the very beginning. Is go ahead and start out with my underground excavations and have a hot tank below ground and have a cold tank below ground, and then we've got both. And then the hot tank could be 5,000-6,000 gallons. Who knows? With that much thermal mass, you might be able to generate your heat during the sunny days and have a week or two of hot water stored up ahead of time. And in that case, you might be able to get away with, maybe not in Minnesota, but in a lot of the places further south, you might be able to get away with going strictly off of solar for the entire year. Mary is saying that people that live in, I don't know about Wisconsin, but Siberia, it's true that they don't use underground water lines. It's not because underground water lines aren't a great idea, but they'd have to bury them so deep and they'd have to dig through permafrost to do it. And that's a lot of expense. It's a lot of work. So they don't. What was that? Scott had made a video where he tells us what plants love excessive heat. Uh-huh. Well, Scott would know. It's always gardening season down where he's at. Whew. 50 to 60 degree overnight temperatures, normal Minnesota summer. So you guys can grow potatoes. We have a hard time growing potatoes in Oklahoma. It's not that we can't. It's just we have a hard time doing it because early in the spring, when we go from May to June, this month, ordinarily right now, the temperature is going from 40 to 50 degrees overnight to 80 to 90 degrees. And the period of time that we have for that nice sweet spot for potato growing is only about 30 days. And we really need at least 55 to 60 days to grow them very well. And then we have a little bit of a longer cool season during the fall sometimes, but not every year. So it's not entirely reliable. Sometimes we get good growing season for it, and sometimes we don't. Brian, stick to fishing. Fish and chips, Brian. Fish and chips. What? Year before last, Wisconsin got down to negative 50. Southern digging up all their water lights. Oof. Potato flowers are blooming where you're at. I'm going to have some before too awful long. I've got a couple of potato plants that I planted back in the fall, but I planted them late, so I wasn't able to harvest in the fall. And I thought that they were done for. I just wrote them off, and we came out earlier this spring and saw that they were growing again. So I guess we're going to get some potatoes. And Wink said, "I grow sweet potato instead. That works really well, actually. I mean, if you have a better long hot season during the summer or during late spring to summer, you're better off growing sweet potatoes. So you can get them out so that you have 5 or 6 days where you have 80-degree temperatures outside before the temperatures, or at least above 55. You want to get them out a week before your temperatures drop below 55 for curing your sweet potatoes. If you can get them out at least a week before your temperatures drop and let them cure, then they'll keep." Mary says, "Yeah, that will work until the glaciers move in." Of course, this is the reason why I wanted to have an alternative heat source for this power system instead of just relying upon the sun. Relying on the sun is great whenever you've got sun, and whenever you don't have sun, you've got to have a backup. That's why those the solar power generators that are being marketed heavily right now, was $2,500 or so for them, only 1,800 watt hours. I mean, come on, that's an awful lot of money for just 1,800 watt hours. I can get an inverter and a voltage regulator and a few batteries for a lot less than that. You got a 100 watt panel that goes along with it to charge it up. That's not a solar generator. That's just a power supply backup, a battery bank. with some solar trickle charge option to it. That's about all it is. Three Sisters bed is booming. All right. We're about done with the peas and the corn right now. We're at mid thigh height, not quite waist height. We're almost at waist height now with the corn. So it's going to be a pretty good year, I think, for the corn. And I'm going to have to get out there here in the next day or two and harvest a whole bunch of peas, and then get ready to haul those out and get some black-eyed peas started. Got a garden saying potatoes down here in Florida is strictly a winter thing. I know you guys have got a really good long cool season during the winter. Maybe not in the Panhandle, but a little bit further down. You've got enough time that you can grow lots of potatoes, and they do really well during the winter. They do the same thing out there in the desert in New Mexico. Isn't that funny? They can grow you can grow long cool season vegetables in the winter in a hot climate. Oh yeah, I'll bet. I mean, we have the same problem here in Oklahoma. Just the real old Irish potato doesn't like our spring because it's over too fast. Once the temperature gets above 85, they're pretty much done growing. Let's see. Brian saying, is sweet potato the same as russet potato, or is that southern? Okay, so the russet potato or the Irish potato, that's a Solanaceae. It's a relative of tomatoes. Sweet potatoes are a Nepomia genus. They're related to morning glories. So it's an entirely different family of plants. And of course, don't confuse them with yams, even though whenever you see them in the grocery store in the cans, it says canned yams. It's not yams at all. Those are sweet potatoes as well. Yams are members of the genus Dioscorea, and it's also yet another different plant entirely. True yams taste more like a regular potato than a sweet potato. He's asking me if I've tried a cloche or similar. A cloche, of course, for people that don't speak French, it's the bell jar that goes over a plant, and you use that for season extension. I kind of accidentally discovered a way to do one with one of those dog cones that goes over the neck. That video that they posted was accidentally brilliant. The dog knocked it off with their head, and it fell on top of some plants. And then I discovered it later and went, wow, that actually worked really well. One of the problems with cloches, of course, is you trap the heat inside, but you also trap moisture inside. And whenever the plant gets to the point where it reaches up and it makes contact with the walls, and you'll have this with a cold frame or a greenhouse as well. Whenever your plant makes contact with the walls, it's freezing cold outside and it's moist. So it causes frost damage to the plant. Well, that cone, since it was open at the top, allowed for it to breathe under there, and the plants didn't get frostbitten. So I think that's gonna warrant a little bit more playing around with. I don't know that we want to buy a bunch of dog cones for that purpose, but maybe some rigid plastic, and we can maybe make some for a little bit less expense. Let's see. Green Thumbs. Any had a problem with garden soil this year? My Florida sand growing better than store-bought soil. Whew. Some of that store-bought soil you just have to look out for. Aminopyralids are running rampant, and they're working their way into finished compost, even the stuff that you get commercially. So anymore, whenever you buy a bag of dirt at the box store, you're taking a chance that you might wind up with a bag that's contaminated. Wisconsin has sand for potatoes. Yes, they do. And Wisconsin is one of those places where you can actually get away with growing them during the summer. Occasionally, you'll have days that spike in the high 80s, but it's not like here where you have weeks on end that are in the high 80s. All right, so I got an inverter, battery bank, kept me company during power outage, even put internet on inverter. That's good. I've got one around here somewhere. Oh, let's see. Oh yeah, yeah. This thing I can. It's a tiny little one, right? This will run the internet for 2 or 3 hours. Enough time for me to get a video uploaded. Basically, is about all I've got off this thing. But most of my backup solar power is for water pumps and aerators and stuff like that, so that my fishies don't have issues. I'm gonna have to do some more videos on the fishies. Right now, it's just guppies. I know, right? We're growing guppies. We're multiplying guppies out there, but the guppies are part of the overall system. We're building it one piece at a time, and eventually it'll be put all together. Uh, the guppies, and we'll get some neocardia shrimp, freshwater shrimp. Those will be feeders for the actual fish that we wind up eating. And I don't know what it's going to wind up being that we grow out. Catfish are popular for an aquatic system fish here. Uh, in places where you can keep your pond temperatures at 55 and keep them there over the winter, you can get away with tilapia. I don't know if we can manage it here, but I'll find out. I'm going to experiment. If I'm circulating water on one side of a thermoelectric generator and running it through the pond, I might be able to keep and maintain a pond temperature of 55 degrees. See, there's another there's another positive side to this, is if I've got that going and circulating in my ponds, I might not need to have an additional pond heater to keep the temperature of the pond up. That water circulating might do it for me, but I'm not going to know that until I actually do the experiment and find out. So I'm not going to go buy a bunch of tilapia and expect them to be at the appropriate temperature and then have to supply a supplemental heater or something like that later on. Spent all winter avoiding Wisconsin and Minnesota because of the minus 50 degrees that year. Yeah, but you were up there this year whenever your drivetrain fell out of your truck and you got stuck there overnight. That couldn't have been fun. So Corey switched it up, went with green beans and acorn squash with the corn. That sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of green beans, though. I mean, I do have some. We're growing yard-long beans, and those aren't with the corn because they're going to be a lot longer. They're going up trellises nearby the corn, and those are going to be our green beans. The pole beans that we've got are the Cherokee Trail of Tears and Anasazi beans. Either one of those, they're like rattlesnake beans. You can pick them while they're green and eat them like a green bean too. But we don't really need to because we have so many other things that we can eat fresh. I mean, right now I've got more fresh food coming on than I can possibly eat, and I'm eating fresh stuff out of the yard every day, and I just can't keep it up. I can't keep up with it. I can't keep up with it all. All right. MK Church is saying, is cannabis legal in your state? It's legal conditionally speaking. You can grow commercially with a license, and you can consume cannabis with a medical card. There's a medical application that, as far as I know, just about everybody can apply for and get. And I believe the people with the card can grow up to 6 plants themselves, according to the state. Now, you still have to deal with federal law if the feds still have it illegal. But hopefully, one of these days, they'll make it all legal, and we can grow our own rope at will. I know that sounds strange, right? People grow hemp for rope. There was a cargo load of hemp coming through Oklahoma that was intended to be used for making rope, fiber for rope, and the people escorting it were armed, of course, because people will do crazy things whenever there's large amounts of hemp involved still, even though it's becoming more legal. They were pulled over. I don't know if there was a scale stop or something else, but the load was impounded. And during the time that the load was impounded to the time it was tested, the the hemp that was in the load, which is intended for rope, had cured to the point where it had a THC level high enough that it qualified as being um, drugs. And so the people who were escorting the load of hemp that was intended to be used for rope were charged with felony possession of firearm while in commission of a felony simply because the load that they were hauling got impounded for too long. And yeah, it's some stuff needs to change with the way laws are done around here. Big scene. Tilapia are tropical. They can't take the cold. Yeah, right. You have to have a 55-degree water for them. And that's the reason why things like catfish are more popular here. I was thinking, I mean, I have a confession to make. I don't really like catfish all that much. Uh, I don't like catfish. I like panfish, like crappie and bass and perch. So I was thinking that maybe we could do maybe a long-eared sunfish, which is a nice, fairly long-bodied perch. They eat everything, so anything that you put in their tank is food for them, whether it's vegetable source or animal protein. Doesn't really matter. They can eat it all. They'll grow up quick to be a good pan size within 6 months to a year. So, you know, have one fish per 10 gallons. Have a couple of 3,000-gallon ponds going. That's enough for quite a few meals of fish per year. John's saying it's quasi legal in Ohio. Yeah, it's all over the place, and I'm wondering what's going to happen if they make it legal federally. If the Oklahoma statutes are still going to apply. In other words, you're still going to require a license in Oklahoma, even if they completely and totally decriminalize on the federal basis. Might have been the reason why they went ahead and established the laws here in the first place, because they were anticipating it becoming legal federally, and they wanted to be able to still regulate. All right, so Brian's saying 12-volt system can't even run an air conditioner except the fan 100 amp hour system. That's not a whole lot of amp hours. I've been looking at these racing fans, right? They're intended to go on high performance automobiles, and they either bring oil to your or oil. They either bring air to your oil cooler or additional air to your radiator system, depending upon whether you've got the small ones or the big ones. A small one that's only about 7 inches across pulls about 2.5 amps, runs off of 12 volts. So with a decent battery backup and and those solar panels, you can have that pulling cool air from a pond. So you'd have your coils in the pond to cool the water off to about 55 degrees or so. And then that brings it into the house. So you'll have nice 55-degree air coming in, about 850 cubic feet per minute, which is a pretty good clip for 2.5 amps of power draw. I think having 55-degree air blowing at me at 850 cubic feet per minute will cool this room off fast. Peter says, grow more senna this year. Comfrey, elderberry, echinacea, and goldenrod. Medicinal, AKS, weeds. Well, those are all good medicinal plants. Except for the comfrey. That's a weed. All right. Oh, Corey's saying you can get your green card, but it'll cost you your other rights, right? So yeah, no green card for me then. Wink's going to go lock up livestock. I went ahead and locked up the ducks before I came in here. So good night. Good night. Let's see. I know, right? Jeez. You can do one or the other. Cured the rope too well. Yeah. It wasn't that high in THC whenever they got pulled over, but apparently the longer it sits, the more it develops. All right, so Brian says 2 of your 100-watt pounds, you get them in the winter. You have 200 watts of vertical on A-frame. They'll be having still catch the sun. Yeah, I've only got one right now. I need to get a couple more. I know that's strange because I'm talking about building a separate system. I still want to have a few of those before we move on. Vicky's saying cannabis is the second most valuable, versatile, and useful plant on the planet. Bamboo is first. Bamboo is mighty useful. You can build just about anything out of bamboo. I'm thinking clover, alfalfa, and azolla are probably pretty useful too. You're then saying, no, you need prosecutors who will deny prosecuting. All depends. If somebody's looking to make political hay, they can prosecute a ham sandwich. Paradox is like, everything is coming out of dormancy, budding, flowering at highly varied times this year too. I have noticed that actually. Earlier today, I was out walking alongside our little meadow out there, and our Hall's Beauty blackberry bush. Of course, it flowered, nice flowers. Not quite as showy as I thought they were going to be, but they were nice. They were still double flowers, and it's its first year. It's a young plant. But it started producing berries, and it had one, I kid you not, as big as the end of my thumb. My thumb's looking a little blue. As big as the end of my thumb, already ripened up. We're not even, well, I guess we're into June now. So yeah, things are unusual. I've got a tree in the backyard, jujube, Chantilly jujube, that hasn't broken dormancy yet. I don't know why. It's just sitting there. It's still alive. The roots are intact. If I do the scratch test on the trunk, I find green underneath it. It seems to be everything's okay. It's just hasn't broken dormancy. Everything else is just going nuts, but this one tree hasn't broken dormancy. It's like, nope, I'm not coming out of dormancy. I don't care. I'm just going to sit here and not grow. So I don't know what's going on with some of these things. Corey Bell's taking out. Good night, Corey. He says, one of my housemates retrieved a non-working tanning bed, fixed the wiring, and it works. Are the lights useful for growing plants? Probably. I believe those are a little bit into the UV in the ultraviolet spectrum, which is good for, what is it? Your blues are good for flowering and budding, and the reds are good for sprouting, or is it the other way around? I can't remember off the top of my head. Heterodox says, yeah, same here. Just a stem. I don't know what's going on with them. I have no idea what's going on with them. Mulberries ripening up this week. Gummy berries turning ripe this week, and they're not supposed to be ripe for maybe 2 more weeks. I need to get out there and do a video on those, because this is, of course, the first year that we've had them, and we've had a couple that ripened early and tried them out. They're pretty good, but they'll probably be better once they've had a little bit extra time to ripen up fully. But those gummy berries, they're about as big around as the end of my little pinky, so that's a pretty good sized berry. It's a little bit bigger than Elaeagnus angustifolia, or the autumn olive. Having issues with the elephant ears. I've got 2 of them up. I planted 4, so yeah, I am too. Once again, things just don't know when it's time to break dormancy this year. Oh man, someone turned to mush. It's no good. Yep, I planted 4. I've got 2 up. I don't know if the other 2 are going to come up or not. and I planted a whole bunch of new cannas, not the canna indica purpurea, which are my main starchy root crop, but I tried out some of the more floral fancy ones, just because I kind of want to see what kind of roots they make, and if I can find one that's also really pretty and decorative and everything, but makes a good sized root, then I'd like to have more of those. Oh, Mary's asking, the water plant is useful. Yes, the azolla is a useful plant. Okay, so a lot of water can't talk. A lot of aquatic setups have duckweed in them, and duckweed is notorious for being able to reproduce under ideal conditions. Uh, Double its size every day. Under ideal conditions, right? You don't always get ideal conditions, but if the conditions are ideal, then duckweed can double its size every day. It provides a good fodder for aquatic animals, fish, of course, ducks. Of course, that's why they call it duckweed. Other creatures can eat it as well, and it's good for pulling your toxins up out of an aquatic system that you're raising fish in. Azolla is capable of doing the same thing, but it reproduces at about half that rate. So every 3 to 4 days, it'll double in size under ideal conditions. But if you don't happen to have enough fish or shrimp or whatever prawns, whatever else it is that you're growing in your aquatic system to produce enough waste for them, they can fix nitrogen from the air because they have an association with a bacteria in their roots that will pull nitrogen out of the air. And of course, this makes them fertilizer, just like clover is. So it's an aquatic clover, but it's more closely related to a fern. So nitrogen fixing aquatic plant. So we can feed that to the ducks. We can feed it to the fish, and we can always, if it gets out of hand, pull it up and use it as a nice fresh mulch around the plants in the garden. So it'll hydrate them, and as it decomposes, add nitrogen as well. So it's fertilizer, it's food, it's everything all at once. And of course, it provides shade for everything underneath. So on these hot sunny days, whenever your fish would be otherwise baking out there in the pond, it gives them a little bit of shade and cover. Hello, Mark. Green Thumb said, freeze in Florida 3 months ago could have affected everyone. Yeah. I think we only had, when I was down in Florida, I was there when I was from the time I was 16 to the time I was 17. 2 years I was down there. I think we had frost 1 or 2 mornings in the middle of the winter, and that was about it. And it was otherwise just nice. I was around Orlando. This is before Orlando blew up. Brian saying, we have water lilies, white flowers. It doesn't matter. The American water lily is American water lily. It still works, medicinally speaking. It doesn't have to be the blue one. Joe's saying elephant ears. Yes, those are also called taro if you're growing them as a vegetable. Let's see. Cut the top part, not the pointy part, and planting that. No, you plant the bulb, the tuber, and I've covered mine entirely with soil. You might get away with leaving a little bit exposed, but they're a little bit forgiving. They need a lot of water. It's just as long as you've got the water for them, they grow well. You also have to make sure you cook them. You can't eat them raw. They're kind of like yams. They're active as a bit of a minor irritant. So while you're peeling them and preparing them, you make sure you get your hands washed off well, or wear gloves whenever you do it. Or you might just be one of those people that's not affected by it. It just depends. Vicky has heard that duckweed is good feed for ruminants. It is. It's good food for just about everything that can eat a plant. Let's see. Well, guys, it's an hour and 9 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and do this town mouse and country mouse story one more time, because Well, because I want to, and because not everybody was here earlier. So let's go ahead and go to share. I'm going to share, not a video file, Jason. Jeez. Screen. There we go. So while I'm doing that, let's see. Where am I going to be? A window. Right there. Okay. Oof. I should probably let me get that ready. Back it up. There we go. All right, are we ready? Brian says, can't trap country mice with peanut butter, have to use cheese. All right, here we go. The town mouse and the country mouse. Now, a long time ago, even before I was a young boy, which was a very long time indeed, there was a mouse that lived in the country. Give me just a second here. I think I've got it right. She made her home at the edge of a field, in a hole beneath an old oak tree. For her meals, she ate whatever she could glean from the field. One day, her cousin came to visit from the farmhouse on the other side of the field. The country mouse did her best to make her cousin welcome. Corn, beans, and fresh greens from the field were all she had to offer, but there was more than enough. But the country mouse's guest turned up his nose at the simple meal. I just don't understand, cousin, he said, how you can live on such poor fare as this. Back at the farmhouse, there's a whole community of mice, and we never have to work so hard for such common food as this. There's jams, bread, fresh butter, and even cheese. All of that sounds quite good, said the country mouse, especially the cheese. Come with me tomorrow, cousin, replied come with me tomorrow, replied her cousin, and see for yourself what you've been missing. The next morning, the country mouse and her cousin made the long journey across the field to the farmhouse. Be very quiet, said the country mouse's cousin as they crept through the back door and into the kitchen. The farmer's wife doesn't like mice, so she keeps a cat inside the house. It will catch us and kill us if it can. A cat? Exclaimed the country mouse. Are you trying to get us all killed? Don't worry. The cat can't reach us while we are in our hole. Once the cat falls asleep, we can come out and eat our fill right off the table. And what, pray tell, is to stop the cat from waking up while we're at feast and catching us on the table? Asked the country mouse. You really do worry too much, her cousin replied. The farmer's wife is very strict and does not permit the cat upon the table. So you see, it's quite safe. Well, that seems strange to me, mused the country mouse. I have never known a cat to do as it's been told. But I'm only a country mouse after all. Perhaps it's different here. Soon enough, the cat went to sleep, and the mice crept out of their holes and made their way to the table. Oh my, the country mouse exclaimed. Everything is just as you said, even better, especially the cheese. I knew you'd see it my way, her cousin said. Wait, what was that noise? It's the cat! Run for your lives! This lifestyle of yours isn't safe at all, cousin, said the country mouse. It's just as I thought before. There is no security to be found in expecting your enemies to obey the rules. And so the country mouse returned to her home in the hole at the base of the old oak tree, all the way across the field from the farmhouse. As she watched the sun set over the farmhouse, the country mouse said to herself, "There's another lesson that I've learned today. It is better to eat from one's own hard work than to steal bread from another's table." And that, of course, is the end of our story. And hey, everybody left. There you go. There you go, Mark. You came in late, so I figured I'd read it out for you. Let me see. Oh, that's just a baby. That's a baby snapping turtle. Let's see. This has got a recipe from a Cuban lady here on YouTube. She grates the taro, stirs in plenty of garlic and an egg, and makes some. Oh, that sounds good too. Yeah, that sounds really good. So the Canada lily is not really great as a mashed root vegetable. It's better cut up into chunks and stir fried or added to soups and stews. So I think taro would probably be better as a mashed vegetable, or potatoes. We'd probably grow potatoes too. So. Thank you, Chewy. Well, guys, I've been on here for a little over an hour. I've told the story twice. Of course, this is my way of talking about Texas without talking about Texas, if you know what I mean. I hope you guys enjoyed it, found it entertaining or informative, or a little bit of both. And if you did, well, guys, you know what to do. Hit that button, subscribe to the channel, bang the notification bell, all that good stuff. Use the force for good, absolutely. And thank you much, Brian, and everybody here. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night and get some sleep because I've got to get up and get some work done early tomorrow. Hopefully, the guys working on the railroad will give me a couple of minutes so I can do some video shooting before it gets noisy out. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm going to have a video later on this week or not. We'll see. Anyway, good night, everybody. I will catch you next time.